This is the moment the state's entire case just fell apart on paper.
I'm sorry, we discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. He came out and he didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
I've never seen anything like that, and I pray to God I never see it again.
Millions of people have seen this body cam already. But when this girl goes on trial for the murder of her newborn, the 12 jurors who will decide her fate.
A dead newborn, a hospital hallway, a 19-year-old still bleeding from childbirth, surrounded by people in uniforms and lab coats who had already decided she was guilty. And now, the New Mexico Supreme Court says none of what happened in that room can be used against her.
It just came down from the New Mexico Supreme Court yesterday. Now, Alexi is still charged with the first-degree murder for what reportedly happened at a hospital in the middle of the night in January of that year. But if and when she goes on trial, prosecutors will not be able to use the statements that she made when she was confronted by police and hospital staff after she allegedly gave birth in a bathroom and then put the baby in a trash can and then went back to her room and didn't tell anyone. And inside that trash can is where state autopsy records say the baby died.
Not one word. Let's go back to January 2023, a rural hospital in Artesia, New Mexico. Alexi Traviso walks in at midnight with 10 out of 10 back pain. She's a cheerleader. She thinks she pulled something at practice. She tells the nurse she's not pregnant. She's on her period, she says. There's some bleeding, but that's normal for her.
Let's go back to January 27th, 2023. Alexi Traviso is a 19-year-old high school cheerleader, and she goes to the hospital in Artesia, New Mexico, rural community, in the middle of the night because she says she has 10 out of 10 back pain. She says earlier in the day she had gone to cheerleading practice and maybe she had done something there to lead to the pain that she was having right now. Now, hospital staff do ask her if she's pregnant, and she says no. She does say she's on her period and there was some bleeding, but that's it.
Doctors give her acetaminophen, a muscle relaxer, something for nausea. Then, almost as an afterthought, they run a pregnancy test. Standard for a girl her age with pain like that. The test comes back at 12:01 a.m.
So let's talk about the timeline here, because it is critical not just in the case as a whole, but in the decision that the state Supreme Court just released. 12:18 in the morning. That is when doctors give Alexi an anti-inflammatory drug, acetaminophen. They give her a drug to prevent vomiting, and they also give her a muscle relaxer. 10 minutes later, doctors test Alexi to see if she's pregnant. Now, according to court records, this is standard procedure for someone of her age and someone who is complaining of the back pain that she had. 12:51 in the morning, Alexi's doctor and nurse are told that she's pregnant.
Nobody tells her. For the next 48 minutes, nurses keep pushing IV medication into her arm, morphine included. She still doesn't know she's about to have a baby. Now hold on to that, because here's where it turns. At 1:39 a.m., she says she needs the bathroom. She's in there almost 20 minutes. Her mother knocks, nurses knock. Nobody opens that door. Inside, alone, drugged, and still not told she's pregnant, Alexi delivers a full-term baby boy.
Alexi's IV stopped because she says she has to go to the bathroom for a bowel movement. Now, hospital surveillance video shows her running to a bathroom, and she was in that bathroom for nearly 20 minutes. Alexi's mom knocks on the door, nurses knock on the door to make sure she's okay, but they don't go in to that bathroom. And inside that bathroom, police say that Alexi Traviso gave birth to a full-term baby boy. 1:57 in the morning. That's when Alexi leaves the bathroom. She doesn't call for help. She doesn't tell anyone what just happened inside.
She comes out at 1:57 a.m., doesn't say a word, goes back to her room at 20:27 a.m. Cleaning staff walk into that bathroom because there's blood everywhere and find a newborn inside a trash can under a fresh Lenner. 1 minute later, the baby is pronounced dead.
2:27 in the morning, hospital cleaning staff, they then enter that bathroom because there was a lot of blood. And that's when they reportedly find this newborn baby dead in a trash can. Just a minute later, that baby officially was pronounced dead, and court records state an autopsy performed by the state found that the baby did have morphine in his blood.
Now here's your pattern interrupt, because what happens next is the part the Supreme Court just tore apart. The doctor, her own doctor, the one she trusted enough to sit in an exam room with, walks in with police officers standing behind him, and says this on body cam for the world to hear. We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Not, I need to talk to you. Not, something's happened. A confrontation in front of law enforcement to a girl who just delivered a baby she didn't know she was carrying, high on morphine, bleeding, in shock. I'm sorry, Alexi says. It came out of me and I didn't know what to do.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. It came out of me and I didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
That's not a confession. That's a 19-year-old who has no idea what just happened to her own body. And here's where the stakes climb again. Because it's not just that one line. A nurse in that room asks her, point blank in front of officers, have you watched the news? About the girls and what they do to their babies. And what happens? They go to jail.
9 months?
Nothing was crying.
Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls, that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail?
Nothing was crying.
Read that again. Not a doctor asking about her health. A threat dressed up as a question aimed at a girl who is still detained, still bleeding, still not free to leave the room. Later, an officer in the hallway says it plainly to a colleague. But she killed the kid.
Okay.
So when they looked in there, there was no trash in there, but it was underneath a clean bag. The baby's dead. Okay, we have him in trauma too, but she killed the kid.
Judgment. Before an autopsy. Before a single fact was confirmed. That's the story the state built its entire prosecution on. Here's your gasp moment. The New Mexico Supreme Court read all of it. The confrontation, the threats, the ambush, and issued a ruling that leaves the state's case in pieces. Every statement Alexi made that night to her doctors, to the nurses in front of police. Gone. The body cam footage millions of people have already watched. Inadmissible. All of it thrown out. The court didn't mince words. In their opinion, they said doctors set Alexi up with police.
In this instance, they go so far in the opinion as to indicate that the doctor had set her up with the police, in their words, not mine, where they ambushed her. And here we have a 19-year-old who goes to the hospital because she doesn't know what the problem is, doesn't know what the matter is. And I know people can find that sort of ridiculous because she was pregnant, but a lot of women don't know that they're pregnant. And if they did know they were pregnant, didn't know that they were about to deliver at the time. So that's the situation.
In their words, not the defense's, and ambushed her in that hospital room. Attorney Gary Mitchell, who represents Alexi, put it plainly. It means almost everything. Her doctor patient privilege, her hospital patient privilege. All of that information is now inadmissible in court.
Joining us now is Gary Mitchell, attorney for Alexi Traviso. Thanks for taking the time to be with us here. What does this ruling mean for your case?
Well, it means almost everything, actually, because most important, the right to privacy that she has, which is protected under New Mexico's Constitution, has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court in a very clear and distinct way. She has a doctor-patient privilege, a hospital patient privilege, and therefore all the information that came from the hospital is inadmissible in court.
Say that part again for the people still catching up. Everything the state was planning to show a jury, gone. Now here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. Mitchell says the hospital didn't just violate her rights that night. They failed her as a patient first. For nearly an hour, doctors knew she was pregnant and said nothing. Not a word of warning. Not a single question about how far along she might be, whether she was in active labor, whether she needed to be moved immediately. A teenage girl, in obvious distress, and the people responsible for her care let the clock run out instead. They never told her she was pregnant. Mitchell said, until after she had delivered the baby in the bathroom.
But the hospital did nothing. In fact, the opinion reflects that for a lengthy period of time, almost up to an hour, they didn't bother to tell her that she was pregnant. They never told her that she was pregnant until after she had delivered the baby in the bathroom.
Think about that. Not before, after. And here's your humanizing beat. The detail that should stop you cold. This was a girl who, according to her own attorney, had never even had a vaginal exam in her life, no experience with pregnancy, no warning signs she recognized, a body in full-blown labor, and a mind that had no framework for what was happening to it. stacked with narcotics a hospital administered without telling her why. That's not a calculated criminal covering her tracks. That's a teenager in free fall.
But they didn't do any of that. So that's where we're going to head. And our position has always been, this is a total shock to this 19-year-old who had never even had a vaginal examination in her life. So it's a total shock to her as to what's going on, something she's totally unprepared for. And you've given her, as the Supreme Court noted in their opinion, all these narcotics.
The state, of course, isn't backing down. Prosecutors say they'll press forward, arguing the autopsy proves the baby was born alive and that Alexi's actions afterward amount to first-degree murder. Mitchell says his experts will say otherwise, that the science will show something very different from what the state wants a jury to believe. And here's the line that should be clipped and passed around by every person questioning how this case got this far, straight from Mitchell. The greatest risk in this case is that we convict somebody not based upon facts and the law, but based upon gossip and rumor and hearsay.
Well, the matters in civil court are going to be stayed pending this criminal prosecution. And I think that's pretty clear. New Mexico law allows for that and typically honors that. So we'll get ready for the criminal case. The court will receive a mandate from the Supreme Court, in other words, an order telling them to proceed. The court, these judges set these cases pretty quick or get us a setting. Now, it may not be a very quick setting, but I suspect we'll be going to trial in 2027. The court will set probably close to a month for this trial, and we'll set it well in advance so that everybody knows and we don't set any other conflicting cases at the same time. And that'll be done, I suspect, in the next 60 days, we'll have a trial setting. Thank you. I appreciate you talking to me this morning.